Well, welcome everyone. My name is Carolyn Whiteman, and I am with you from the Florida Keys this evening. And we have an awesome call tonight. And this is our monthly, what we call our OPA call. And OPA stands for Organic Products Associates. And OPA is the visionary name of my original mentor, actually not my original sponsor, but my original mentors, Mary and Gary Loomis, who were the people who I was actually second generation to originally. But in their vision back decades ago, as they began their business, they could see that the organization was going to grow beyond having the name of being the Loomis organization, that there would be more leaders whose names would not identify with Loomis. And so they created a brand name for our whole family, which is called Organic Products Associates. And their son, Rob, is now the face of the Shackley business. At the time that I was first introduced, Rob had just vacated their downstairs apartment of the Loomises in Beverly Hills, where I was first sponsored. And Rob had just left for Harvard Law School. And Rob is now the face of the Shackley business as a second generation, which will be part of our conversation for tonight. And so it is with great pleasure, the OPA organization includes, I believe, 10 master coordinators, and I see 2 or 3 or 4 of them on this call already tonight. So we are very proud to be a part of a Shackley family that has the umbrella name OPA. And so this is our monthly call, and this is my opportunity to host this call tonight. So it is going to be my real exciting pleasure to introduce you to kind of 2 parts of what Shackley can represent. One of them is what it's like to be a second generation leader. And the other is what it's like to be pioneering a third generation entrepreneurs in their Young Entrepreneurs program. So I'd like to just start out with a couple of quick things. And Scott doesn't know I have this, so just a second here, got up here. So we get to introduce Master Coordinator Scott Palmer and future Presidential Master Coordinator Nicholas Palmer, who is Boston College class of 25. Is that right, Nicholas?
Great. Yes, that is correct.
Great. So we're going to get to hear from both of you. I just get to start out with a very serious business meeting that Scott and I had down here in the Florida Keys. And this was what, sometime last winter, I guess?
Yeah, I think 2 winters ago. Yep.
And Scott was here on a business trip, and so we had a chance to meet up. We are not in each other's business organizations, but we had a chance to meet up, and so we went down and took a day just kind of cruising around the Keys. And then I think we should probably let him have the opportunity as he introduces himself to tell us where he has been for the past 3 or 4 days. So let us welcome future Presidential Master Coordinator, currently Master Coordinator, Scott Palmer. So Scott, welcome. You want to tell us about these pictures first?
Yeah, thank you, Carolyn. It's really a pleasure to be here with this group, the OPA organization. And as I listen to the heritage of OPA, it's very interesting because it resonates with me, because I've been working on my vision statement, and my vision statement has as a future vision 10 master coordinators in our group. We currently have 1, but we're going to build it to 10. So when you just said that OPA has 10 masters in it, that's our goal, and that's what I'm going to be building to hand off to Nicholas and or Charlie, our other son, who is a 1.5 years younger than Nicholas, who's with us tonight. But just a quick snapshot of the last few days. So I had the pleasure of going down to Tampa with my wife, Lily, who's pictured here on the left side of the screen, to spend a few days in Tampa at the Super Bowl. So we took, a few extra days because we've had, a little rough stretch lately with the passing of my father. We planned his funeral, went back to Minnesota, and really had kind of um, I'm not going to say a real sad couple weeks, but when you lose a parent, it is an emotional roller coaster. Even though he was 85, and we knew the end was near, and he had celebrated a great life, as Shaklee Master Coordinators do. They travel the world and they have great memories, and most importantly, they have great friendships that last forever. And so, as I teach the business to my son Nicholas and our other son Charlie, it's one of the things we share is the heritage. And so it was kind of fun to get down to Tampa, because I really needed a transition. I needed to get out of the cold weather. First of all, I was stuck in Minnesota for a week, and then Boston for the next week, and we just needed to get out. We needed sunshine, we needed brightness, we needed something to really liven up our lives for a little bit. So Lily and I went down to Tampa. We went to the Super Bowl, had a great time. And oddly enough, we took a tour of Ybor City, and we walked around. I took a tour of the cigar factory, J.C. Newman, which is the last cigar factory in the United States, which is a great tour if you're ever in Tampa. But Lily, who's Nicholas's mom, she's of Cuban heritage. They immigrated in 1961, which oddly enough, 60 years ago. There's a lot of round numbers, going on in our life right now. So 60 years ago, they immigrated. My family business is 50 years old. And I've been in the medical device business for 30 years, which I'm transitioning out of hopefully in the very near future. So anyway, we had a chance to go to Ybor City this week and had a really, fun time touring around there. And then we are from the Boston area. We're big Tom Brady fans. So we thought we'd go cheer on old TB12 to see if he could pull in number 7, which he did. So we had a lot of fun last night watching the game, and we flew home today, which was kind of a fun way to get back into the swing of things, to get on the OPA call. So here we are.
Oh, thank you so much for being here. I'll take the pictures off now, and would you like to give us just some of what your perspective is, Scott? A little bit about your story, growing up as a Shaklee guy, family, Minnesota, what you're doing now, and what it looks like to come back into to this as a second generation.
Yeah, so I had a really unique perspective. As a 7-year-old kid, my parents started their Shaklee business in 1971 when my mom's sister introduced her to the vitamins. And, we were a young, struggling family. My dad was an entrepreneur. He had beauty salons and a billiards hall. He was a barber, and, a lot of business things going on with a lot of headaches, a lot of employees, a lot of payroll, a lot of issues, and, having a hard time making ends meet. So they got into Shaklee, and they had some really great mentors, the Hagermans, the Hokers, Chuck and Joyce Hoffman, the Burks, and the Sutter Homes. I mean, you can just go on. And, we had the Tuesday night meetings every week at the Ambassador Hotel. I mean, I remember it like it was yesterday. I used to go as a kid because my parents couldn't leave me behind. They didn't have a babysitter, so they would just bring me with, and I'd be, right alongside of them and listening to all these inspiring master coordinators like dream and build their businesses. And it was really kind of a cool experience. And, as I, got out of college and started my career, I look back on that, and it was a pretty incredible experience and an advantage that I had over all my peers in my particular industry, which was medical devices. So as I kind of set sail on my career, I opened up my own distributorship, became an independent entrepreneur, my own contractor with some medical device companies, and I set up shop in Boston. Boston was my territory, and we built a big business in medical device sales in downtown Boston. And then, as things progressed, I had a couple transitions in and out of a few companies. But a couple years ago, I had been working for this really great company out of San Diego called Nuvasive, had this really great technology for minimally invasive spine surgery. And the company's management team changed. And we all know what happens when management team changes. The new team comes in, they wanted to change everything. And so lo and behold, I found myself with a terminated contract. I sat down with these two new managers, and they said, we hereby terminate you effective today. They were all nervous and they didn't know what to say. And they thought I was going to like kill them on the spot or something. So I just got up and walked out, and I called Lily that day and I said, we've just been given the best opportunity of our lifetime. And, I think back on that, and it was kind of crazy because my contract was just terminated, but I knew deep down there was something bigger and better. And, I knew eventually my paths would lead back to Shackley. And as my dad was getting up in years and he was kind of transitioning out or slowing down, it was a perfect time for me to come in and offer him, to buy the business. And so that's what transpired 2 years ago. I bought his Shackley Master Coordinator organization. And that's what kind of led me to Carolyn. I reached out to some master coordinators, and I went to one of the events that they put on for MC Mentors in Portsmouth. And I met Carolyn and Charlene and Roland. And I really started to seek out some mentors myself, because I knew I had to learn the business again. I had to fine tune my skills. What worked in medical devices is different than what works in Shackley. Carolyn connected me with the Richard Brook training seminar. I did the 90-day run to Momentum. I went to his Chicago meeting. I studied Eric Worre, and I studied some different visionaries in network marketing that I trust. I read a lot of books. I reread all of Dr. Shackley's books, and I really just had to learn the business all over again to kind of fine tune my skills so that I wouldn't just be a second generation, bump on a log doing, jack squat. Like, I needed to be productive. I needed to, do something big with this business to hand it off to the third generation, which, in my opinion, I'm a temporary stakeholder as I look to pass this on to the third generation, which we're lucky enough to have my son on the call tonight.
That's such a powerful story, Scott. What are some of the things that you see, and because that's a big commitment that you made to actually buy the business back from your parents, and to make the commitment that this was something that you intended to have a real stake in. What is it that you see, and what is your perspective on that from now?
Great question. So, being in the healthcare business like I am, I see only sick care. And so when Roger Barnett talks about sick care, like turning sick care into well care, that really means something to me. That resonates with me because I'm tired of sick care. Like, I don't want to just treat people when they're sick. Like, I want to treat Nicholas and all his friends, aspiring athletes, like guys that are like really in great shape, that are striving to great heights and, building health and wellness. Why wait till people are sick? And, why don't we impact them and affect them earlier? So to me, the mission is, it's really meaningful. And, because I've seen the whole industry of healthcare and all the incentives that are kind of misplaced. They really are. It's really geared towards, just the more surgery you do, the more you get paid. So, every patient that comes in the office is a potential, a potential surgical candidate, they call it. So, I like the Shackley business model. It's something to really, it's very easy to believe in. So that's one perspective. The other perspective that I love is the freedom. In my medical device distributorship, I was on call 24/7, 365. My phone never left my bed. I got calls on Christmas Day, Christmas Eve, my son's birthday, every single holiday, weekend, vacation you can imagine. There was no off day for 30 years. That's the nature of that business. That's the price you pay. And people just learn to live with it. I know, based on what my parents had, there's a different way to live. You don't have to live that way. You can be successful and have another way to live that's a little bit more of a healthy lifestyle, and you can have a little freedom.
Wow. Scott, I know you will, it's not part of your nature to brag on yourself, but would you say something about what your medical device business actually has involved you in? What some of the things that you've done and some of the achievements that you've had, just so there's a perspective.
Yeah, so the medical device business, most people probably know somebody that is maybe in my line of work, whether they're in orthopedics or cardiology. You know, a guy like myself will represent a company. We'll go into the operating room. We'll have our devices ready for surgery, and everything has to be perfect because that surgery has to go perfectly smoothly. So we bring in all our trays of equipment, get them sterilized, and make sure we're preparing ahead of time. You know, we have all the steps of the surgical procedure ready to go, and we, you know, really prepare the night before a surgery in a pretty extensive way. And then the day of the surgery, everything goes smoothly. And then whatever's used in that patient, we bill the hospital. And that's how you bill. And then the more surgeons you get to use your company's equipment, the more business you get, and so on and so forth. So in Boston, I went to work for a company that was a minimally invasive spine company, and they had no business in Boston, you know, just a little bit, you know, maybe a couple $1 million of annual revenue. And so over the course of the next 6 years, we grew it from 2 million in annual revenue to 15 million in annual revenue. And it was a very, it was a team. You know, I had 10 reps that worked for me. You know, we had a big team, a dynamic team that was really growing. And in our last year, we won Distributor of the Year, the #1 sales growth of the company, which was $3.5 million of growth, not of sales, but just of growth. We grew from 10.5 million to 15 million in 1 year in annual revenue, and then the management team changed. But
and then you were terminated.
Yeah, that's right. As Richard Brooks said,
I mean, we get this right.
Through my name. That's, you know, that's the world we live in. You know, we know that management teams change, and in my case, one of the surgeons I worked with, he went through a divorce, and so he didn't operate for about 6 months. So my sales just plummeted. And, you know, I didn't care because he's my friend. Like, I was more worried about his mental health. I thought the poor guy was, you know, going to do something bad to himself because he was in a really bad situation with 4 young kids who were no longer going to see him. So I was concerned about this guy, and this new management team just wanted to fire me and go to the next distributor. And they probably thought, well, if they can keep all of Scott's revenue plus hire somebody new and get their new revenue, then they could have double the revenue. Now, they had to buy me out. Luckily, I had a pretty strong contract. They had to pay me a good amount of money, which I ended up investing in the Shackley business. But, you know, the bottom line is the surgeons I worked with, you know, they didn't care about the company. They just cared about the people like us that are in the streets, out in the operating rooms. So my customers all wanted me to stay. And quite honestly, at that point, I wanted to leave. Like, you know, when, you know, you're the broken up spouse or girlfriend, and nobody wants to stay when somebody doesn't want you. So all the surgeons were calling me up saying, hey, how can we get you to stay? And I said, to be honest with you, I don't want to work for these people anymore. So I don't want to stay. Like, this is the best thing that ever happened to me. But in the process, you know, of that growth, really it came down to building relationships. I built a lot of relationships that were based on trust and honesty and hard work and grit and preparation. And, you know, one of the fun, probably the most interesting thing I did was I had a chance to go on a medical mission to Africa. I had a chance to accompany one of my surgeons to China. Actually, the whole Harvard spine surgeon team went to China. They invited me as one of the industry guys, as the only industry guy to accompany them. I went to Prague with another group of surgeons and some other various international travels. But, you know, really, it's no different than in Shackley. As we partner with people, you know, we build coalitions, we build friendships. It's like, you know, what we're doing with KSAO now. You know, we're not in the same downline or organization, but it's the power of collaboration that is really incredible.
Wow, that's such a powerful story, Scott, and we'll have an opportunity for some people to ask some questions. But what I'd like to do is I'm gonna jump for a minute now to what it's like. I mean, this is it, if you're new and listening to this, what you get to realize is that we're talking about, you know, decades worth of experience just among the two of us, but it's now a whole nother generation. And then we're gonna visit with Nicholas on what it looks like to be able to create something as powerful as this that continues to go on and continues to thrive and so on. I mean, it's really pretty extraordinary from a business standpoint. So let me just let me move to what I'd like to refer to as the Young Entrepreneurs Project. And the Young Entrepreneurs Project is what I believe all of us get to look forward to as we are thinking big, and that is mentoring our next generations of Shaklee leadership. Because I started in the business when I was not too long out of school, out of college. And when we look at the multi-generational power of what we have, it's our responsibility to be looking forward to who are we bringing in to follow us. And so I thought I would just think for a minute as we introduce Nicholas, and I'd like for you to comment, Nicholas, tell me whether we've got this right. But what do young entrepreneurs want, and what do they need? Why is what we have something that can be of value to them? And I say that some of the things that are important are to be able to connect with something, to be able to have some kind of a purpose and something that they believe in, something that they can enjoy, something they can celebrate with friends, which is obviously all the things that, Scott, you're referring to that you've been able to do. And then as we look at our young entrepreneurs, it's being able to learn a profession, because even as we graduate from university, we don't necessarily have a profession. We have a degree, but we don't necessarily have a profession. And if we're fortunate that our young entrepreneurs, that they can escape student loans, or they can have access to be able to repay them in a relatively prompt manner, rather than having it be several $100s a month that are hanging over their heads for 5, 10, 15 years and more, which is just debilitating financially. And then to be able to create some kind of a platform for future stability, because as we make that transition, it's like, well, who's going to support me? And so, Nicholas, what I would love to hear from you is, thank you so much for being with us and for sharing a little bit about your perspective. And you don't have to make any big declarations about anything, but I would love to just hear from you what it's like to have grown up in a Shaklee, maybe not as fully invested a Shaklee family as Scott did, because his parents were actively involved in the business. Your parents have been peripherally involved in it. But what's it like for you, Nicholas, and what are you seeing? Because I hear you saying, hey, I'm a future presidential master. I didn't make that up. I heard that from you.
Yeah, no, so thank you for having me on here. So, you know, Shaklee, the products have been like in my household like my entire life, and I've just been using the products like my whole life. Like I play football and I run track, and so I do a lot of workouts and stuff. And so before like pretty much every workout, I'll use the Shaklee Energize, I'll use the Build. You know, I eat the protein bars, take the multivitamins and all that stuff. And some of my like teammates on my football team have actually like asked me to try the products, and I'm like, sure. And they all love them. So I realized that, you know, I should learn like how to make some money off this business. So I turned 18 2 months ago. So I figured like what better time to start than now. So about like a month ago, my dad finally explained the Shackley Dream Plan to me, and he like taught me like the business model and how everything works. And I wanted to get started immediately, so I got signed up. I got my own Shackley code, and I wanted to like start telling my friends about it and getting them involved, and I wanted to bring it to my college and tell my college friends about it, because like I realized that my grandfather built a huge business, and my dad now has it, and it'll get passed down to me eventually. But I don't really just want to wait for that to get passed down. I want to build it myself. So I figure if I start now, I'll have my entire life ahead of me to build, to work hard now and then see the results later in my life. And it'll be even bigger once he passes his business down to me. And, I think what a lot of young entrepreneurs want is for them to put in work and then see results. So I think Shackley is a great opportunity to build a passive income later in your life. And I don't know everything about it yet, but I'm still learning. But I definitely want to continue to learn so I can take what my dad has built and just make it even bigger when I'm older. And yeah, that's just why I wanted to get started with Shackley.
Well, and Nicholas, you have the additional good fortune of growing up with entrepreneurs as parents. And that is a really different model, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because and tell me a little bit about what that's like for you. What do you notice in terms of the difference?
Well, it's definitely an advantage because, I can learn directly from my dad and see how my family built it. And, not everyone has that advantage, but I just want to be able to use that to kind of like teach others what I know and what I've learned from my dad, so that they can build their own businesses even though they don't have that advantage. So I definitely consider myself lucky that my family has been so successful with Shackley and I can continue that. So yeah.
Well, what's really fortunate in that perspective is that for many or most families, they don't look at the idea of growing a business. They look at the idea of where do I go to get a job?
Yeah, exactly.
That is a different kind of mentality, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
And so you've been able to make that distinction in looking at, and of course, looking at your dad's experience. I mean, even though he was an independent business owner as a contractor and as a medical device rep, um, guess what? He really wasn't independent. When you can walk in one day, you can go from being the top distributor that had this enormous growth to walking in with 2 new owners and saying, guess what? You're fired. It's
Yeah.
like, seriously? I mean, so there really is no security in the idea of getting a quote job, even when you're performing, even when you have the level of achievement, as you've been able to see through your dad's experience. So what I'm hearing from you is you've been able to see the entrepreneur side, and that is part of the factor. Have I got that right?
Yes, definitely. I think, to be honest, I think the school system kind of encourages us to pursue just a safe, like secure job, even though it's really not secure. As you can see from my dad, he got terminated after being the distributor of the year. So I think people really need to open their eyes and see that that going after a secure job really isn't the best choice. It's not the only choice.
How did that feel for you to know that your dad was the distributor of the year and had this great thing, and he had to walk home one weekend and say, guess what, I'm fired? How did that feel for you?
It made me feel kind of scared to enter the business world. It just seems unfair. Like, I don't know. Can't imagine being the distributor of the year and then getting fired. It's really eye-opening.
Well, the beautiful thing about the difference between being an employee and being an entrepreneur is really a lot of it's right up here, isn't it? It's a perspective of being able to say, I do choose to be able to grow my own destiny and to learn the skills so that if something like this happens, I will always be able to walk away with the skills and not just the so-called job.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I just think Shackley and any entrepreneurship opportunity just has so many more benefits, and it can just make people's lives so much better than they're working for money, as opposed to like having money work for them. I've read a lot of books, and they all seem to agree that entrepreneurship is just the way to go.
Well, you've definitely got the background. I will tell you one quick story that some of the group may know. Our son, who I mentioned that graduated from Florida State, grew up in our family of entrepreneurs, and I never realized how that permeated. I didn't realize it. We didn't grow up as employees. But after he graduated and actually got the very first job that he had, he's been working on the water with very high-end competitive sport fishing boats that are, all around the Caribbean, around the world. And after he got onto his very first boat, and someone left the boat, and he went from being a contract kind of for the summer to being offered a job and being offered to work for, and have a real live job. And I never realized the mentality until he called me and said, "Mom, I'm really nervous, but I think I want to be independent. I think I want to set up my own company, and I'll do the same work, but I don't want to work as an employee. I want to be able to work on contract because," and in his case, he said, "if the boat isn't fishing, I don't want to be sitting there polishing chrome." He said, "I want to be able to take the independence to go and work or not work." And what astonished me, Nicholas, that I realized must be from this entrepreneurial ideas, he said, "I have the name of my business. I know I need to talk to the accountant to make sure that I get it set up as a proper corporation. I already have QuickBooks set up, and if you'll help me get the domain name so that I can make sure that people identify with me and kind of help me through it." And I thought, did these words come out of my son in a row? It's like, where did this come from? And yet what I realize is it is exactly what you've been mentored by with your parents and your grandparents, is the idea of being an entrepreneur and having money work for you and not just going and working for money. Does that story make any sense?
Yeah, no, it relates to me a lot because I think another benefit of that is choosing like when you want to work. And so like last summer, actually, when most of my friends were just getting jobs at like restaurants like McDonald's and stuff, my friend and I like started our own like little landscaping business, where we just like made an ad and advertised it on Facebook, and we got a ton of customers and got work through it the whole summer. And the best part was we could just choose our hours and work whenever we wanted, and we still make more money than our friends who were working for other people. And we got to just choose to work in the day if we wanted to, and then have the night off to go, hang out with our friends, do what we want. And it was great. And we met a lot of good customers, and they gave us advice and stuff. And it was a good experience, good taste of entrepreneurship for me.
That's really great, Nicholas. And I would imagine that along with that, you've then been introduced to the idea of what happens with taxes and doing things like working with your own QuickBooks and stuff like that. You can see all of those things in your world.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, I'm just hugely impressed, and I thank you so much. Scott, what would you like to add?
No, I think he said it all. I'm just really proud of him because, he took the initiative to like create this one-page brochure for his landscape company with his buddy Jared. And Lily and I were like, when did you come up with this? Like, where did this come from? Before we knew it, he posted it. And, there's a Windham, New Hampshire Facebook group here in our town. And it got posted on the group. And all of a sudden they had more clients than they could handle, like within 48 hours. So it was really a very interesting case study in the power of entrepreneurship in the modern day with the right social media connection, and boom, before you know it, it took off. And that's just Facebook. We're not even talking Instagram or TikTok or, all these other avenues that, you can use to build your brand. So he did a great job. And, I really think it's a testament to his initiative, and he reads books. Like, he devours books. For Christmas this year, I think I bought him 10 business books, all of Warren Buffett's
That's
books,
awesome.
and all these great entrepreneurial books. And he was like, give me more. And, I think it helped him, in his college application process too.
Mm-hmm.
He submitted to BC and he got early acceptance. And, I think those stories, really helped his essays.
You bet. You bet. And Nicholas, have you started setting up your own credit score? Do you pay your own phone bill? Have you got that started?
Yeah, I actually just got a credit card right when I turned 18. So working on that. Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you the story that is the extension of that is when our son did this. When he was about, I don't know, 15, 16, I made him pay his own phone bill and put it on his own card. I mean, we probably paid him on it, but I said, no, this is going to go in your name, and you need to make sure it gets paid every month and do it on auto pay, because you're going to establish a credit score. And he did that all through college. And by the time he graduated, the first thing he did was he was able to walk into any dealership and buy a new vehicle. I mean, he bought his truck like that. And then when he decided that he was ready to buy a house, he said between the time within about a 45-minute drive from leaving the house to a different destination, he called up to get a commitment on a loan, and he got a commitment for $250,000 before he'd even gotten to the next traffic light. And it was all based on thinking as an entrepreneur, setting up all of these habits, even at a small, with small amounts, and being able to do that as an entrepreneur. And he looks around, and we look around at some of the people that grew up with him, and they think that you came from another planet. It's like talking about doing your taxes and setting up a corporation and saving money and stuff. It's like they can't figure it out. But I realize how important this entrepreneurial thinking is that we have been able to pass down, Scott, through the heritage that we grew up with. So congratulations. That's truly exciting. Let me pull up just a couple of things, and then we'll see if people have questions or comments. Now, here was one of the thoughts that I had is, how does this relate to Shaklee? Well, let's talk about the young entrepreneurs and talk about things that you all have already referred to. Is why is Shaklee such a prospectively terrific business? And one of them obviously is the career potential. It's the long-term possibilities. Another piece of it is being able to add value to the market. It's like you're not going out there doing something, like you said, Scott. There's certainly value in fixing people that are sick, but given a choice, isn't it nice to be able to be in well care? It's what I refer to as a career with a conscience, where you've got something that makes you feel valued. What else does Shaklee have? Well, it's a market that's expanding, because people are never going to stop needing to stay healthy. And we certainly have that. We understand that in these particular times, because our business has continued to thrive. And I think that people, not everybody, obviously, but there is a market of people that have a little bit more openness to going, maybe it would make sense for me to do a little more to keep myself healthy and to do some of the core things that Shaklee makes available. So it is a market that's expanding, that doesn't have territories. So in your dad's case, he started in Minnesota, moved to Boston, and has business spread out all over North America. And in your case, you decide After you graduate, you're going to go somewhere else or take some other experiences. We're not limited territory-wise. And we can offer a complete education program, like from square one all the way through developing that mentoring with a training system. And you've got the opportunity for personal mentoring, obviously from your own family, but we all mentor each other. I mean, Scott's a mentor of mine. We're not even in each other's businesses. And yet we can reach out and get the best of people who are lifting us up. And of course, there really are those unlimited financial possibilities. So from an entrepreneur standpoint, I can see how really important it is for us, and I say us who are existing current business leaders, to really be reaching down into the generations that follow us. And so what are the things that you've already mentioned? What are the things that makes Shaklee such a great choice? Well, you want to be with a company that has a legacy and a vision, which we know we have with Shaklee. You want to have a commodity, or the products that we have that are based on over 100 years of innovation. And any of us who've been around the business for a while will be able to say, gosh, I remember so-and-so who I just talked to 2 days ago, who's been a customer of ours for, X number of decades, that's buying all these things, and now they're buying them for their grandkids. So, I mean, that's valid. The opportunity we know is like what we call the land of and, all of those things we've talked about. And then to be able to rely on the leadership with the team vision and the mission and the culture and the system. And that those are the things that we're able to provide for you and your generation, Nicholas. So as you come along, those are the kinds of things that make our Shaklee kind of business so prospectively attractive. So what I'm going to do, so just as we finish right now, and then I want to come back and let people ask questions. We're very proud to say that those of us, the masters who work together with MC Mentors, we're actually offering a weekend program this weekend on Saturday from 9 to 12, and we'll have a sunset, a second showing that will be on Monday, which is a holiday, from 12 noon to 3 p.m. And this will be 3 different segments of what one might do to actually build and create a new entrepreneurial business. And so we get to offer those things. If those are of interest to anyone, you want more information, go to mcmentors.com and you can register for those. It's a complimentary program for these. And you can also tap into a really powerful interview that I'll let Scott mention something about, and that is an interview that Richard Brooke does with Dr. Kay So, who is a presidential master coordinator with a Shaklee presidential master coordinator. It's a very powerful interview. So if this is of interest to anyone who's listening, you can do these things. But what I believe, Nicholas, is that these are the kinds of things that you and your generation would be looking for. Because if you're going to create a business, you would hope that this is available to you and that you could begin to tap into it, and that those people who are your colleagues or their colleagues, you have something that you can tap into. So let me come back to you, Scott and Nicholas, and just see, do you have any things you'd like to add or things we missed? And then if anyone's got questions, we can let you meet our wonderful guests.
Sure, we can open it up to questions. I think the Case Richard Brooke interview is awesome. I watched it multiple times. I couldn't get enough of it. I love how Case Sal, in a very just professional way, addresses leadership, recruiting, mindset, exponential growth. It really is, it's powerful. And it just shows you that the opportunity is unlimited here. And if you set your mind to it, you can have exponential growth.
Well, one of the things, Scott, I will say to acknowledge you and Nicholas that I really am excited about is your excitement in coming back and looking at what you're going to be building as you expand your own generational business. Because what I hear from you is it's not just, oh, gee, they fired me and now I got to go take it on. I get a whole different level of excitement from you. You want to finish up with that, then we'll see if there's some questions.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, the excitement here is it's just unlimited potential because it's our distributorship. Nobody takes it away. You know, in most industries, you know, you can have it taken away in a moment. And you know, it's not just me, it's not just my friends and colleagues in my company, it's every company. I can tell you, I had 8 to 10 friends the same year I got terminated. They all got terminated too, about half of which were independent guys like me. Luckily, we had contracts and we had to be bought out, but the other half were direct employees of that company. And guess what they got? A goose egg. Zip, zilch, zero. Not a
Wow.
cent. They were shown the door and they had to go find a job the next day. Otherwise, you know, they couldn't pay their bills.
Wow. Wow.
Cruel. It's a cruel corporate world.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, Nicholas, you are an inspiration, and you are not only an inspiration, but you are a prod to all of us, a reminder to all of us that you and your generation are our responsibility to treat our business with professionalism, to provide a level of mentoring for you, and for us to be able to make sure that our business keeps that attractiveness for you, because we've got it all. And so thank you so much for taking time. And Scott, other Scott Holdren, I'm going to turn it over to you and see what's next, how we manage, if people would like to ask any questions or make any comments. Scott, I'll let you be the guide.
Hey there, anybody that wants to pop up and ask a question, just hold your space bar down while you talk and then let go when you're done talking.
And I can't see everybody, so whoever is there anybody who would like to ask a question, or maybe you just like to say, hey, congratulations. I don't want to call on anybody, but if anybody's got some comments, we'd love to hear from you. Hi, Sarah, another master coordinator. I see your picture here.
Hey, Scott, Ray Madoran.
Hey,
Hey, Ray.
How you doing, buddy? Hey, you know, we've got, along with Alan Sherp, and, you know, we're all in the corporate world like you were. I think maybe we were fortunate that we went to work for our wives early before we got fired. So, you know, that was probably a good thing for us. I retired fairly young at 55 and went to work for Barb, and it's just been absolutely fantastic since then. And we're kind of working on our granddaughter to maybe take over the business at some point in time. She asked me one time, she said, I said, Kaya, I said, what do you want to do when you grow up, when you get out of school? She said, I think I want to be a doctor. And I said, well, why? And she said, well, they make a lot of money. And I said, Kaya, do you realize your grandmother makes as much as most doctors? She said, really? She does? I said, yeah, she does. So I think maybe we've got somebody coming up like Nicholas. Our granddaughter, Nicholas, is absolutely gorgeous, and she's 17 years old. So I just want to just put that in your head. So great job, Nicholas. Great job you guys did tonight. So thanks.
That's
Ray,
great.
along those lines, you know, I have so many good personal friends of mine that are spine surgeons and orthopedic surgeons around Boston, and
Yeah.
you know, we play golf together. Like we're good buddies, and they have a tough life. Let me tell you, they are on call 24/7. They only make money when they're cutting skin.
Yeah.
So every patient that walks in is a potential client, you know, basically. Now, granted, they have the Hippocratic Oath. They don't operate unless it's indicated. But they, it's Robert Kiyosaki's, quadrant. They're self-employed. They only make money if they're cutting. It's not passive income. You can't leverage others like we can in Shackley. And they have a hassle factor like you can't believe, malpractice insurance, the list goes on. There are a lot of big challenges that they face, and they're not really all that happy these days because their reimbursement's going down. And so, being a doctor is an admirable profession. Don't get me wrong.
There are a lot of people out there that are career disturbed that we can talk to and get them involved in the Shackley business, where it's such a positive thing, where we're helping people both from a health standpoint and a financial standpoint, and we do things for people, not to people, and that's really a great thing that we have going for us in this industry.
Amen.
Yeah, thanks, Ray.
Hi, Scott. This is Sarah Stauber. Can you hear me?
Hi, Sarah. How are you?
Master coordinator.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Yes. Thank you so much for that story. That's really, should I say sad? It was like probably a bittersweet a goodbye for you. But you know what? At the end of the day, it was really amazing that you had the guts and the backup to do what you did. And hope we get to see each other one day soon.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I hope so too. I appreciate the kind words.
So
one
let
of
me ask you, just
go ahead.
everyone, I don't know, but so we have, God bless, 6 married children. I always wonder, I have those that use a lot of Shackley products and those that use nothing. And, I have 5 married sons. My daughter uses everything, but sons, there's like a limit of how much you could convince your daughters-in-law to use Shackley. Anyway, so, and I have some other folks in my organization that are in the same quandary as to how do you navigate the second generation to take a look even, because I find, in your situation, you had a different career first before you're coming into Shackley, where those of us who, our children probably appreciated the fact that I didn't go out to work. I was there for them. But, the balance is sometimes tough between running a Shackley business and raising children. And especially when you're dealing, with the women coming from other families where they have never seen something like this. And sometimes they think that I'm a health nut or whatnot. And so much is how do you do this? How do you get them to take a look, or you just ignore it and say, and then really what happens from there to say, okay, who am I going to give over this business to?
Yeah, I think in my dad's situation, I think he kind of had me pegged out of the 3 children as probably the most likely suitor. However, it wasn't until a family weekend estate planning weekend just with the 3 kids and my dad, which was a smart move on his part. This was probably 3 years ago, I'm thinking, 2.5, 3 years ago. He had us all fly into Minneapolis. We all sat down and we had an estate planning meeting, and his estate attorney was there too. And, we talked about, everything that, could transpire. He had early stage Parkinson's, so he was starting to think about, how to transition. And, at the time, he was just going to pass the Shackley business on to the kids. But we started talking about it, and I said, well, Dad, I talked to Marjorie Fine, we determined a fair market value for the business. I'd like to offer you that amount if you're interested. If you're not interested, I'm fine. I can go back into medical device. I can work for any company I want to. It's not that I'm forcing you to, but I'd really like to see your legacy live on. So it was only because that weekend planning meeting that caused us to start to have challenging conversations. And I would encourage anybody that has a legacy business to have a weekend planning meeting, have a challenging conversation with your kids. And, in my case, I said to my sister and brother, I said, hey, if you guys want to buy it, it's all yours. You know, I'm open to any one of us buying it. I just think somebody should. So in our situation, I was the only one that, you know, said, you know, I wanted to buy it. And then, you know, I purchased it. We had a purchase and sale, just like an official business acquisition, so that it was fair for all the kids. And the money I paid went into his estate, which is going to be divided up by all the kids anyway. So that's how we did it, Sarah. But, you know, everybody does it differently. And, you know, it's not to say our way was the right way, but it worked out for us. But I always had a little bit more of the entrepreneurial bent in me than my siblings. And, you know, because of my experience, you know, I'm used to growing businesses and I'm used to being in that arena. So it was, you know, an easier transition for me. And I've taken the vitamins and the products all my life. So that was a no-brainer. I know all that. All I had to learn was just modern day Shackley network marketing.
That was a very smart move on your father's and the fact that you were able to sit down three siblings, just talk. Did it start and end with talking only?
Well, you know, I won't kid you. It wasn't as simple as I'm making it out to seem, because the following week, I got an email from my brother's third wife who said, "Oh, no, hold on. This isn't what your parents wanted. They wanted all three of us kids to have the business." So, you know, so it wasn't quite as smooth as I made it out to seem. But, you know, when I sat down with my dad and, you know, we really talked it out, and we said, you know, listen, you know, we just have to make this black and white, you know, let's do it professionally. And, you know, so we kind of quieted down that one objection that came up. My sister was completely on board with it, but, you know, there was, you know, a little hiccup along the way that we figured out, you know, how to deal with that.
Well, that's very beautiful and mature. Beautiful. Thanks for sharing. It's really something to, yeah, we all have to think about it, especially if we have mature businesses, six-figure incomes. You just don't want to let it get ruined.
Right, exactly.
Well, and Scott, I think there are a couple of really important lessons out of that. One of them is, I think that the idea of not having a business transition to a single person is a huge mistake. The idea of we'll just give it to the kids means that you've got all of those things. No one's responsible. No one is necessarily taking charge. So if there's any lesson that you've done a really great job with is let us all be thinking and not expect that, well, I've got three kids, I'll just let the kids take it on, because that's gonna hurt the business, and it probably will hurt the family relationships. Those of us who've been around Shackley for a while have seen that happen, where it's like, well, the kids took the business. The kids couldn't even spell it. They can't spell Shackley. They've had a business that was like going on its own, and no one is taking responsibility. So you end up with a whole lot of people with no one to look up to. So please let us all take this as a role model for us, that we make sure that we be thinking ahead about how do we choose to transition our business. And then, you know, the other piece of it is exactly what you've said is, and that Nicholas has said so well, is I can't just, even if you were to take it on right now, it's like he doesn't have firsthand experience. So that's what you're taking on also, is to say, I not only have an existing organization, but I get to learn how to make it happen. I got to go out and build some things myself just to have that experience. So thank you for, I mean, this was not part of what we thought we would talk about, but it really is an important lesson for all of us. And you've created a great role model for us, Scott and Nicholas. Thank you so very much. So are there any other comments or last questions? Maybe Scott or Nicholas, anything you would like to add to close our call?
Well, I have a question for Nicholas.
Yes.
I'm just wondering, okay, you're coming from having the generational experience, et cetera. Do you, as you're coming into this, I'm not looking for details, but do you, as you're coming into this, do you see a path where you can be bringing in those people that become a first generation business that then makes up your new presidential master coordinatorship?
Yeah, well, that's what I'm hoping for. I'm hoping that I can, get my own kind of business started before I even like take on my dad's business. But we'll see how it goes. Like, I'm just gonna at least I'm gonna like learn how to manage the business before I get it. But my goal is definitely to build my own and get first generations under me before I take on my dad's business. So yeah.
Yeah, and you just in a very general sense, you do see that that's possible?
I think so, yeah.
You bet. And we're here to support you, Nicholas. We're really here to support you. Thank you so very much.
Mm-hmm.
Scott, any last thoughts?
I'm just really excited with the future direction. I love what KSAO and the MC Mentors Group is doing. That just really resonates with me, as a professional approach to running a dynamic growth business. I just love what he talks about. So if you haven't watched the interview with Richard Brook and KSAO, I would highly encourage everybody to do that, because that is just an awesome blueprint for growth. And, it reminds me of a book. One of our national sales meetings, there was a guy named Peter Diamandis, who Fortune magazine says is one of the world's 50 greatest leaders. And he was asked to give the keynote address at our national sales meeting in 2016 out in San Diego. We were at the Marriott Marquis. And he said, the business world has it all wrong. Everybody's trying to get 10% growth or double-digit growth so they can report to the Wall Street earnings analysts every quarter, their double-digit growth. He said it's all wrong. The world's great leaders don't go for 10% growth. They go for 10x. They go for a 10x factor. And he works with all Silicon Valley's great leaders. And he said, you have to have a moonshot. You have to have a big vision, a big dream, because, if you're just going for 10%, it's like going for $2,000 PV. You're going to come up short, and then you're going to be stressed out and filled with anxiety. And if you go for moonshots, you can really dream big and strive for great things. And, that's what inspired our team to really do what we did. And, we didn't hit 10x, we hit like 5x. So we grew to 15 million, but it was still good enough for Distributor of the Year. And our team got behind it, and we were always like, 10x, 10x, 10x. We got to get 10x. Let's keep it going. So we were really inspired and hungry. And I love, if you haven't had a chance to read Peter Diamandis, the book is called Bold. He's got other New York Times bestsellers, but he's a really interesting guy that works with, some of the world's top leaders, and he's the coach. So really, really interesting.
Well, you are an inspiration, Scott and Nicholas. Thank you so very much. We've had I told you this was going to be a great call. And I hope that all of you share the inspiration. Those of you who are inclined, go to mcmentors.com, and you're welcome to register for what's coming up this weekend and tap into the interviews. But this is our 10X. This is where we're going, and we're committed to the next generation. Nicholas, thank you so very much for contributing, donating an evening. And I know I can speak for all of us that we're here to support you and be your cheerleaders and be your mentors and be your support team. So thank you so much for providing that for all of us. So
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, guys. Great call.
Nicholas, thank you very much.
Thank you,
Yeah.
guys.
Thanks.
Thank you.
See everybody.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Carolyn.
It was great. Just awesome.